the aim of this session really is to, one, explain obviously the panel that, that you guys are now on, the protection panel, but it's really to help you to not only survive on the panel, it's to help you thrive on the panel. We don't want you to be on the panel thinking, what am I doing here? You know, I don't understand it, I don't like it, I wish I was back where I was before. I want you to really feel massively confident about where you are, and see the benefits that your clients get from you being on the panel, and therefore, you know, helping you to, as I say, thrive in this world, not just survive. So what we did last week, or what I did, was head around the country seeing lots and lots of PS advisors who'd moved onto the panel, who came to a number of road shows that we did around the country. And these are sort of the follow-up to that for those who couldn't make the limited number of venues that we sort of put on. And I guess those road shows were extremely well received. I've picked up lots and lots of emails since them. In fact, one just came through a few minutes ago from a PS advisor where, following that road show, he's now written 4 bits of protection that he said he had never have written before the training that we went through, totaling around about £4,000 worth of commission. And what I'm going to do is check with this advisor that he's happy for me to send it round, and I will if he's happy for me to, so you can see the sort of difference that some of the things that we're going to talk about now can make to your protection business. So, right, so basically what we did at the road shows, now bearing in mind these road shows lasted a whole day, or at least 10 o'clock till 4, so I'm going to race through in about an hour what took us quite a number of hours to do. So there's quite a lot more detail in each of these areas that we're going to look at. But basically what we did was went through the sales process. So where it says introduction there, this was looking at briefly what the protection market was and is, and then saying, well, on the back of that, you know, how do we make appointments? How do we get in touch with clients? And what do we do once we're, first of all, in front of a client? How do we explain the FCDD and so on? Then once we've introduced ourselves, how do we do the fact find? You know, what's the best way of us doing that? Once we've done the fact find, we go away, we do the research. What's the best way of doing that? You know, what does good look like from an advice point of view? And then presenting the solution back to the client, how do we tackle that? And then how do we, you know, under the panel cope with the pipeline situation? How do we submit the case through to the provider? What's the best way of doing that? And what about ongoing reviews? So I'm pretty much going to touch on all of that, but it's fast, it's high level, but stop me as we go through if there's anything that you think, no, that doesn't really work, or I need an answer to that. And what we're going to do is pretty much just touch on, as we go through, of course, how the panel is different to where you were before. But I thought by actually doing the sales process, it sort of shows how it all hangs together. So, if you're happy with that, I'm going to keep pressing on until somebody stops me. So just one slide really on the protection sales opportunity that's out there. So we went through a couple of these things very quickly on the day, and I'll do it even quicker here. So we were sort of asking the PS advisors who are in the audience, you know, what percentage of families in the UK don't have any life assurance in place, and all sorts of different answers came back in, but the right answer is 61%. So we're not in some saturated marketplace, are we? There's many, many families in the UK with no life assurance whatsoever. We looked at the percentage of families in the UK that don't feel that they've got adequate financial protection, and this figure was guessed fairly accurately. Around about 90% of families don't feel they've got adequate financial protection. And in fact, what we did on the day, bearing in mind that most of the sessions, there was around about 20 PS advisors there, sometimes a few more. I sort of said to the PS advisors that were sat there, look, out of the advisors in the room, hand on heart, who has got adequate financial protection? And generally it was 50-50, so half the hands went up and half the hands stayed down. And I said, well, there you go. We're in the industry. We're actually living and breathing this, and only half of us feel adequately protected. No wonder in the wider world it's as high as 93%. We looked at some stats around single parents, won't really cover that now. The other one I just would point out is this critical illness one. So in the UK, what percentage of the population have got absolutely no critical illness cover at all? It's a really high percentage, 87%. So, as I say, it's not a saturated market. I'm pretty certain that most clients that you go and see, you'll know that and will be able to see straight away that there are protection needs there that need sorting out. One of the things that I mentioned on the roadshows, and it's been picked up by practically everybody that's been on these roadshows, especially the ones who've responded back to me, is something that I learned about, well, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago from an advisor in America called Lou Nason. You can look him up on the internet. He retired in December. But Lou Nason basically runs sort of protection sales boot camp training weeks. So you can literally sign up to go on one of his courses, and he teaches you the art of selling, or the science of selling, as he calls it. And in America, they're not frightened of understanding that actually some products need to be sold, and protection is one of those products. And they go along on these week-long training courses. There's really nothing like that in the UK. We're sort of a bit reticent about thinking that things have to be sold. But anyway, I spent quite a long time talking to Lou over the years, and there's one thing above everything else that he put into my mind that changed the way I viewed protection. Because he said to me, he said, Andy, he said, it's nothing to do with your client bank, it's nothing to do with where you live, it's nothing to do with how many clients you've got. He said it's all to do with one thing. He said it's to do with the urgency that's in the advisor's mind over how he sees his own client's situation. If he sees it as an urgent problem that needs sorting out, then he will do something about it. If he doesn't see it as urgent, if he sees it as something, well, I'll get round to it, nothing happens. He said, so literally, this is Lou talking, he said, I'd go into an advisor's office, I'd pull open filing cabinets and go through all of their client files, and I'd pull out one after the other, and I would see in front of me urgent client need. And I said to him, wait a minute, Lou, why do you keep saying this word urgent? What's that got to do with it? He said, if it isn't urgent, why should they see me at 7 o'clock on a Friday night? There is a degree of urgency to it, because if something happened to that client, their whole world could come collapsing down around them. And he said, me as a financial advisor, able to advise on protection, if I haven't done that to the fullest extent and to the best of my ability and created that sense of urgency with the client, then I've failed. And he said, it's as simple as that. So he said, I would look at exactly the same client as somebody else and see urgency, see urgent need, and I would do something about it. The same advisor, a different advisor looking at the same client, just walks straight past and, in effect, doesn't care. So it's getting that degree of urgency right in our minds that is really crucial to actually doing something about the protection gaps that are out there. And it's surprising how much we are able to influence the outcome by having that sense of urgency. And just the emails that have come back in have said, I've got that right in my mind now. I've literally started looking at my own clients in a different way. This is just in the space of a week. And PS advisors have suddenly started writing more protection than they've written in the last 3 or 4 months put together in just the last 3 or 4 days. So if you take nothing else away from this, do take this sense of urgency, with you, and you'll find that in itself does make a difference. So we then had a session that talked about, making the appointment. Have you got reasons to get in touch with your clients to make appointments, especially around protection? So we went round the table, and there were all sorts of different things. That there was mortgages with no protection. There were mortgages protected, but there was no lifestyle protection. And we had a big debate about this, sort of saying if all we do is protect death, then all we've done is probably protected 25 to 30% of the client's outgoings. Well, fantastic, but what about the 70% that you've left untouched? What about the clients who've just bought life cover and there's no critical illness? What about the 96% of PS clients who haven't bought income protection? It's an enormous number, and you say, well, okay, have you gone through the whole process that we're about to show you? Because if you have, we would expect to see far, far higher percentage than 4.8%, which is the level of IP that's currently there with PS advisors. So there's an enormous amount out there. There are protection cases that are single life, not in trust. There's urgent reasons everywhere for us to be making the appointment. But we'll come back to this in just a minute. One of the things that we also spent a fair bit of time doing was talking about your proposition to me. Because let's say I'm your client, and let's say, Angie and myself need some protection, and as it turns out, we do. So you're sat there talking to me and Angie about protection, and I'm probably not dissimilar to most clients with the sort of niggle in my mind that says, you know what, I could probably do this on the internet and save quite a bit of money, which I could, couldn't I? I could go, if money was the only reason, if price was the only reason for doing the protection or the major driver, then to be perfectly honest, I'm probably best going on the internet, sorting it all out, and saving quite a lot of cash. So there must be reasons for me, spending time with you as an advisor, and, some reason that I'm going to spend quite a lot more per month with you for potentially exactly the same product that I could buy elsewhere cheaper. You see, even where you were before, even before going on the panel, it's absolutely fair to say that an identical product I could probably get 20% cheaper than dealing with you anyway. But now you're in a world where prices are 7% more expensive than they were before. So you need even more around your proposition to me to justify why I'm dealing with you. So we spent probably half an hour on this, and we're going to spend all of 2 minutes. It's really crucial for you to absolutely nail down what your proposition is to me, and just think of it, your proposition just around protection, because it's the protection bit that I could go elsewhere and get much, much cheaper. So what is your proposition to me around protection? And we had all sorts of things. Well, first of all, I'm here face to face. I'm sat on your sofa. I'm taking into account all of your surroundings. I'm looking at all of your needs. I'm designing solutions, around your life. I've got expertise on products. I don't know. It could be some advisors said, I actually make quite a big thing about how I help clients at the claim stage. If you deal with somebody on the internet, well, what are you getting there? Is anybody going to help you at the claim stage? Is anybody going to come round and take the tin away and go through all the policies that need to be claimed on and help? And I said, that's a fantastic thing that you do there. If that's what you do, make sure clients know that's what you do. Tell them up front, this is part of our proposition. We put the policy in trust. This is how we do it, and so on. So it's writing out, literally write out all the things that you do that show to me that it's worth me spending another £10 a month on my insurance, on my protection, than it is going elsewhere. But there's more to it than that, because there are additional things that I'm going to show you right now that potentially you could do for your clients that I don't think you're doing right now, specifically in relation to protection, that justifies even further the additional money that you are charging them for you dealing with them. So you come and see me and Ange, and the first thing that you probably do when you've given us an overview of your proposition, and we will come back to that in a minute, is first of all you're going to probably go through, you give me a business card and you also go through your SCDD. Now, from an SCDD point of view, I look at this, and what it said was, under insurance, now you've gone on a panel, the box that was ticked said we can only offer products from a limited number of companies. Well, I must admit, I look at that and think, well, I may as well chop off my left leg, and that's how happy that statement makes me. It's an awful statement. We can only offer products from a limited number of companies. Does not sound inspiring. And certainly, if I was looking at that from a client perspective, I would be saying, well, it doesn't really sound that good, does it? So we changed it last week. So your statement now says, it doesn't say we only offer, it now says we offer life, critical illness, private medical insurance, income protection, and whole-of-life products from a panel of leading insurers. Now, to me, that sounds a hell of a lot better. And your SCDD, whether you're a financial planner, mortgage advisor, protection only, it's been changed to say that. So definitely make sure you're using the latest version. And of course, what you can also legitimately add on to that is that if for any reason this leading panel of insurers, Mr. Client, doesn't fit your circumstances, then I can look at the whole of the market. So we've got a leading panel, and we find that 95% of the time the leading panel works for our clients. If for some reason it doesn't, then we can look wider and look off the panel, look at the whole of market. Now, who's going to say that's a bad deal? Who's going to say, no, this is an awful situation, I'd rather deal with somebody else? It's all positive, and hopefully, you'll see that in that light. So definitely download the SCDD. One of the things that I spend a fair bit of my time doing is going around talking to advisors who are hugely successful in protection to find out what they do, how do they do it, what do they say, how do they say it. Because to me, selling is a science, and words count, phrases count, the way we ask questions count. So anyway, here is what I've put on the screen here is a little bit of a huge transcript of an advisor called Colin Baxter, who is a mortgage and protection advisor within Intrinsic, who writes a huge amount of mortgages and writes more protection on those mortgages than just about anybody else within the network. And when we videoed him, when we recorded him, it's amazing how positive the whole thing comes across. So I just picked out a few lines here as to how he positions the SCDD. So he basically says, look, we're a company that's regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. It's an independent body set up by the government, and it's there to make sure that everybody in our industry do the things in the way that they should be done. So this is massive protection for you. And what we've chosen to do in addition to that, well, we're part of a big umbrella company called Intrinsic, and they deal with the FCA on our behalf, and they just make sure we do everything correctly. And they spend time checking the regulations because they change quite frequently. And what that does, because they're spending the time doing that, well, that gives me more time to deal with you. So that's really positive for you. And even though we're with Intrinsic, we still look at the whole of the market for mortgages, and we work with a leading panel for protection, and he goes through the the bit that we've just looked at just now. So everything comes across very client-focused, and in other words, everything that he has done to make a decision to be in his business is there primarily for the customer's benefit, and he's showing them what that benefit is. When we ask PS advisors, and it's not just PS advisors, when we ask intrinsic advisors, you know, how do you put across the SCDD? At least half of the advisors say, well, I've got to give you this. And the client picks up the piece of paper and looks at it. And of course, anything that you've got to give means that you don't really want to give it. Otherwise, you'd want to give it, not got to give it. So, you know, you've got this piece of paper that you've got to hand across, and that's therefore the one piece of paper that the client thinks needs to go in the bin as soon as the minute that you walk out the door. It's a really poor way of beginning the whole process by saying you've got to do something. So, you know, really stop and think about how you're positioning anything that you give them. It's all got to be put across in a positive way to the client, because that's how you want it to come across. So, pressing on. Now, this is different. This is new, and I'm going to ask you a question in a minute, which it would be good to get a response from you guys. So, one of the key things that we are advocating are protection-only appointments. This is an appointment that you do with your client that is absolutely 100% focused on nothing other than protection. Now, this is quite different to the way PS has operated in the past, and I would think out of the 138 advisors that we've talked to and seen over the last 6 or 7 days, less than 5, but I think it's 4 or 5, have said to me, yeah, I hand on heart do protection-only appointments, and that's 4 or 5 out of 138 advisors. A protection-only appointment is where the appointment is only about the protection. It's nothing whatsoever to do with investments or pensions. It's nothing whatsoever to do with the mortgage or these things. It's purely a 100% focus on protection. So let me explain. At the moment, almost certainly the appointments that you do, and well, this is what I've learned from doing these roadshows over the last week. I've said, over the last, think of your last 10 appointments, what were they about? And advisors have said, well, it was a general review. I've gone in just to do a general review. Fine. That isn't a protection-only appointment. Fine. What else? We've gone in under RDR to go and review their pensions or investment performance and check it. Right. Okay. That isn't a protection-only appointment, but that's another type. Mortgage advisors have said, well, I've gone in to do the mortgage and we also talk about the protection. Fine. That isn't a protection-only appointment. That is a mortgage appointment where you also talk about protection. At all of these appointments, protection is being talked about, but it isn't a protection-only appointment. So what we're saying is they should be. What we're advocating is stripping out a time for you to go and see that client to purely do protection. So you might still go in and do pension and investment. You might still go in and do the mortgage. You might well still go in and do a general fact find. But at that appointment, when you're doing any one of those 3 things, you say to the client, look, protection is really, really important. And in fact, it's the foundation of everything that we do from an advice point of view. Because if something goes wrong, if the worst happens, then fundamentally the whole of this can fall apart, and your pensions and investments and what we're doing there can unravel. So it's really important that we get the protection bit right. And because of the importance that we place on it, that I place on it, what we do, or what I do, is actually a standalone separate appointment just to talk about that. And because there's a degree of urgency with it, if something does go wrong, we're going to try and plug that appointment in within the next week from where we sat right now. And you'll find that clients will say, fine. And what that does, you know, is that protection-only appointment gives the client, well, one, you're giving them a whole load more time And secondly, it gives the client a lot more focus, because if you try and do a proper protection sale, as it were, and mix it all up with everything else, it becomes just too much for the client to cope with. It's too much information. It's ISAs in one breath. It's investments in another. It's a mortgage and repayment vehicle in another. And it's some protection idea in another. It's too much. And what you'll find is if you slow the process down and if you give the client more time on a dedicated protection appointment, the client's understanding rockets up and their commitment to spend money also rockets up. So we've found that advisors who do this are in effect getting around about double the amount of premium that clients were spending with them before. So my question to you right now is, I'm interested in this, is how many of you, okay, if you're protection only, then you can only do a protection only appointment, but how many of you right now are doing what I'm describing right now, true protection only appointments? If you click on your little hand, whatever it is, at least I'll know you're still there.
Let's have a look. I've got one
Who's doing
hand
them?
so far, Andy.
No hands yet.
2 hands.
2 hands. So,
okay. 7. Yep.
Yeah. So there's normally 1 or 2 out of an audience, and so this is something that you can truly do. And normally it's the mortgage advisors that themselves have said, you know, we've done the mortgage, let's go and do the protection separately. So the question now is, if we're doing a protection-only appointment, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? How does it benefit? What's the process? That's what we're going to quickly look at. Of course, you might well say, where do I get the time from to do these protection-only appointments? And, you know, what's justifying all this extra time that I'm giving to the client? And the answer to that is, we're paying you around about £400 more per protection policy that you write under the panel. So I'll show you the commercial figures in a minute, but give or take, it's around about £400 more for an average £46 a month case. Now that's a huge amount, that's a massive increase. In fact, it's 48% more cash than you were getting before. So what we're saying is, because you're earning a lot more, part of the justification of the higher premiums is giving the client more time and more energy and more, you know, a great degree of urgency around protection, and ultimately, you know, the additional premium that they're paying is helping you fund that additional time. So you go in. Well, let's say you saw me over a generic review, and you've persuaded me that actually protection is very important, and we strip that part out, and we're going to come back and talk about that separately. So I agree to that. So now you come and see me, and how is it now positioned? What are you going to say? How are you going to tackle this? So what you actually say to me is, look, Andy, look, Angie, it's 2 things. This appointment this evening is just about 2 things. It's about keeping you in your home, and it's about maintaining your lifestyle if the worst were to happen. And we'll have a think about what things could happen in a minute. But are you happy that that's what this is about? It's about keeping you in your home. It's about helping you maintain your lifestyle if the worst happens. Who's going to say no to that? They're the 2 key things in anybody's life, being able to stay in their home and keep doing the things you want to do. So, and all the way through this appointment, keep referring to those 2 things. Keep it simple. It's helping you stay in your home, maintain your lifestyle. And we've developed some animated sales aids, dragged them kicking and screaming from the 1980s, where we used to present things graphically. We used to, you know, help clients understand things far more. And many of us used to do this back then and stopped doing it. Well, we've resurrected some things. So I'll send this over to you. This is one of 9 different sales aids, if you like, that we've animated. So you could say to me and Ange, look, just to show you pictorially what we're talking about here, supposing that's you holding that boulder on that slope there, and that boulder represents your income that's coming in, and you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week flat out holding the cash up there. The question is, what happens if either you're too weak to hold it up there, perhaps through illness? What happens if you died and you weren't even there holding it up at all? What happens if the worst happens? Where does this ball roll down to? It's almost certainly not going to stay where it is. The question is, where does it roll down to? Now, we've stuck a peg in there and it stops it rolling down to the bottom. And that peg could be state benefits, it could be employer benefits, and all of that we look at in this meeting. And in effect, there's two things we're going to work out. One is, where does the ball roll down to? Where does it actually stop? And the second question is, where would you like it to stop? And that's it. That's all this appointment's about. Fine. So now what we do is pull out our protection-only appointment fact find. Now, I don't know if any of you are, can I just ask this question? Who at the moment is using our protection-only appointment fact find? Can I just have a show of hands on that, if you're using it?
We've got no hands, Andy.
So no hands going up. Right, so nobody's using this fact find. Okay, so I don't quite know what you're doing if you're doing a protection-only appointment right now, but this fact find, if you're doing a protection-only appointment, the two who are, I think you'll find it very helpful. And for those who haven't done protection-only appointments, this is going to change your life. So hopefully you can see on the screen here the first page of an 8-page, we've called it Protecting Your Lifestyle, fact find. And this is quite an unusual fact find because it doesn't start off like all other fact finds, which start off by saying, well, what's your name and what's your address and, you know, what's your date of birth and do you smoke? Which, you know, in fairness, is the most uninspiring start of any fact find. All fact finds should be changed to start like we start this one, but there we go. But let me just talk you through this, because this has got the focus not on you telling the client anything, it's helping the client tell you everything. So what we do, we say to Mr. and Mrs. Client that's sat there, Andy and Angie, me and my wife, okay, we know quite a bit about your home already because we found that out on the generic appointment, or we found that out, you know, when we were talking about your mortgage. So we know you've got a mortgage, we know what this house is worth, so we understand a little bit about the mortgage side, but what we probably don't know much about is your lifestyle. And in terms of protection, in terms of what we're trying to do, we're not only trying to keep you in your home, we're trying to help you maintain your lifestyle. So tell me a little bit about your lifestyle, things that you like doing that cost some money. It might be holidays or hobbies or stuff with the kids or stuff like that. So just ask them. And what you'll find is that clients start off this whole appointment talking about things that they like talking about. Some advisors who started doing this found it really weird to be, you know, it's not about the money, we're just talking about their life. It's quite a strange sort of concept. But we're interested in their holidays and hobbies and things that they... Now, I'm not saying we spend an hour talking about this. You probably want to spend, you know, 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes talking about these things and just make a few notes down. But these are the very things that almost certainly they would start to have to consider giving up if, you know, income was to either slow up dramatically or stop altogether. So these become all the hooks for later on that they're telling you about now. You also ask them about anything that might change in the future, anything on the horizon, you know, job moves, house change, maybe kids' uni. Just be interested in where they see their life potentially moving in the future, because that will also affect, you know, potentially advice as well when we get to that. We then have a very strange question. It's a really, really strange question, but very, very important question. Because the question is, Mr. Client, in an ideal world, and in fairness, this doesn't sound that ideal, but in an ideal world, if your income did stop, what would you want to happen to your lifestyle, all these things that you've just been telling me about? And what you'll find is that just about everybody responds by saying, well, I don't really want it to change at all if I could help it. So write in that box, I don't really want it to change at all if I can help it. Whatever they respond in, whatever language they respond to you, write that in that box. It becomes, again, a hook for later when they're perhaps wondering about the money and what to spend and, you know, whether they can afford it. They've already told you they don't want it to change. And now the next question is probably the key. And I don't know if any of you are doing this at the minute, and again, most advisors aren't. What most advisors will do is tell the client that they've got a potential problem. So they'll say something like, well, Mr. Andy and Angie, you know, you need to really consider what happens if you die. You need to consider what happens if you get a critical illness. Of course, lots of people get critical illness, and lots of people die, and so on and so on. And I might agree with you, or I might disagree with you. But what you're doing there is that you're telling me that there is a problem. And telling isn't selling. Selling is persuasion. And the greatest and most best form of persuasion is already in the client's minds. All you've got to do is extract it. So what you say to the client now is, okay, Mr. Client, we've looked at your lifestyle, you're in this home, we want to try and keep you in your home, we want to try and maintain your lifestyle. What sort of things could happen in your life to stop you keeping your home or to disrupt your lifestyle? What things could happen? And then just shut up. And now what do they say? What do they, well, in fact, you might be, can we get some of you typing in here to keep you awake? What sort of things could the client say to say, yes, that would stop me keeping my home, that would stop me maintaining my lifestyle? If any of you want to type in a message in the chat bit, and I'll have a look and see what comes in, or Andrea can. You've got about 5 seconds to type something in. I wonder if anybody's going to do this. I'm giving you another 5 seconds. Plus the fact it gives me a breather. Has anybody responded yet, Andrea?
Yeah, so we've got one from Brenda who said, I could have a bad accident.
Yeah, good one. Could have a bad, well, it's not good, it's pretty horrible, but yeah, you could have a bad accident.
Anybody else?
Okay, we'll take that one. What you'll find is, if you think of anything else, I'm sure you can, you're all sat there, you know exactly the sorts of things that the client's going to say. That's an interesting one that came back in there. I could have a bad accident. That's exactly what a client might say. What a client won't say is, I could get a critical illness under policy definition number 3. They're not going to say, I could require an income protection plan. They're going to talk in their language back to you, and they might say, well, I run my own business. Orders could collapse overnight. They might say, if we get run over by a bus. They might say, I could lose my job. That's probably, the most frequent ones come out. They will list out, though, all the things that you're there to help them with. And normally they'll list them out in the order, even though you haven't asked them for the order of priority, they'll give it to you in the order of priority that they think it's going to happen. Because your brain works in such a way that whatever's closest to the frontal lobe, at the front of your brain, you can't help but come out with that one first. And the one that's least likely and at the back of your mind will come out last. So they'll prioritize it automatically for you without you asking them to. So when you say, what could go wrong, almost always the first thing that will come out is, I could lose my job. Normally the second one is something to do with accident, and the third one is to do with death. And sometimes they won't even say the death one because it's too, it's too difficult to even mention it. They don't want to mention it, but it's not so much they don't want to, it's the least likely to happen. They don't meet people every day you know, that have died. Well, you don't meet people who've died, I understand that, but you know what I mean? It's not an everyday occurrence. But anyway, you'll get all of these things listed out, and lo and behold, the client now has told you all the things that you're there that you can help to protect them for, which is fantastic. You've not told them anything. They've gone and told you. Now, the next bit we miss out entirely, and it's the most crucial bit of the lot. Mr. Andy and Angie, life is a gamble, right? The whole thing in terms of protection is a gamble. And the thing is here, what we need to do is just to work out the chances of any of these things that you've listed out actually happening. Because if there is no chance that any of these things happen, then you are 100% secure in your home and your lifestyle is guaranteed to be maintained. But life isn't quite like that, so let's have a talk through these things and work out what's the chance of any of these things happening. So you told me that you might lose your job, or you could lose your job. What's the chance of that? And if you did lose your job, could you get back into work somewhere else? And if you couldn't, what sort of job might you do? And talk about this, because you are no longer interested in products. What you're now interested in is them as a family and a unit, and whether you can help them stay in this place or not. What we tend to do is think, where can I sell a product? I'll change your view, and it will come across massively to the client if you do. I'm interested in whether you can stay in this house or not. So ask them about the job and what's going on there. And then ask them about the odds of things happening. What's the chance of you, you know, being run over by a bus, like you said? Or what's the chance of you dying, like you said? What's the chance of that? And of course, well, they don't really know, I would imagine, because how do they know? And this is why, Mr. Clark, what we've done is brought along a report for you that actually analyzes the risk for you. So I'm just going to flick over to here. And I'm just going to go back a stage. We designed, in conjunction with LV, our own risk reality calculator. LV didn't just make this up on their own. We asked them to create it. And if you go to riskreality.co.uk/intrinsic, you're now able to do a risk reality calculator for your client. So you can put in Andy and Angie, and you can put in my age, and I am 45, and my wife is 19. No, she's not. She's 42. 42. Male, female, non-smokers. And my retire. I don't know if you can see all of this. Hopefully you can. Can you see this, Andrea? Keep calling you Andrea.
Yeah, it's fine, absolutely fine.
65, 62, doesn't matter, whatever we want to do. And here are the risks. So, well, the chances. So there's a 51% chance that Angie and myself, one of us, is unable to work for more than 2 months before retirement. There's a 23% chance that one of us get a serious or critical illness before retirement. There is an 11% chance one of us is dead before retirement, and there's a 66% likelihood of one of the above happening. And these are now figures that are absolutely bespoke to them. They use national stats, and this now is the basis of the conversation about risk. You can make a number of points from this, of course. One is you can see why policies and products that cover you for being off work sick are quite a bit more expensive than those that just cover you for dying. It's purely down to it's far more likely to come over the line. But what we need to do rapidly with the client is turn these figures into faces. So what you do, you say to, I mean, they will talk about this. I promise you there will be a big discussion now with the client just over these figures. And just let them chat. Often they'll just talk amongst themselves about it, and the bloke will think, no, these are ridiculous figures, and And the woman will say, oh, no, I think they're probably right, and they'll debate. And all you're doing is working out their ATR. And one's got a different ATR to the other, a different attitude to risk to the other. But it's fine, let them talk, work it out. But turn figures into faces. So say to the client, okay, Mr. Client, if these figures are true, and I've got no reason to doubt it, LV have sourced them, they're using national statistics, but if these figures are true, you should know somebody where they've been off work for more than 2 months. You should know somebody that perhaps has had some form of cancer or heart attack or stroke or MS. You might even know somebody that died before the age of 65, though probably not so many of those because the percentage is smaller. But do you know anybody? In fact, let's narrow it down. With your immediate families, so brothers, sisters, parents, uncles, aunts, and cousins, anybody out of that that have suffered any of these things. And by just narrowing it down to a specific close group of people, they're now looking at faces. And lo and behold, they say, well, yes, I do. Well, who and what happened, and now be interested in them. And now what you're doing is getting them to play through almost like their own widow's story, if you remember that from the 80s. It's real people, it's real circumstances, it's absolutely something that's happened, but it's not at the front of their mind, but you've brought it now to the front of their mind. These are great referrals, by the way. They're the best leads on the planet because somebody that's been burgled will look to fit the alarm, you know, as soon as they possibly can. And these people have been burgled. They've had things go wrong, and they are just fantastic referrals. But leave that on one side just for now. This is about the client that you're talking to. So we go back to the fact find, wherever that is. Here it is. And I would be writing in this box about actual people, about what they feel about these different things. And it comes down to now, well, now we've discussed all these things that could stop you keeping your home and maintaining your lifestyle. What would you like me to try to resolve? And in what order? And you'll get two different responses at this point. You'll either get, well, do everything. You know, just do everything. That's like, we can't afford not to do anything. Because what you've done is taken them up to the edge of a cliff, and now they're just thinking, blimey, I better do everything. If they do say that, you need to stop and you need to say, well, wait a minute, you know, the chances are you won't be able to do everything because affordability does get in the way, you know, in terms of spending the money. So let's just, you know, prioritize things and work out which ones are the most important and which are less important. And we'll do it in relation to your home, we'll do it in relation to your lifestyle, and just work it through. And so get some prioritizing going on. But the other reaction is, well, we can't do anything. So you get one extreme that says we'll do everything, and another one will say we can't do anything because we can't afford it. So you'll get the money issue come out because you've taken them to the edge of the cliff and they think they're about to sign something and fall off the edge. So you need to like back them right off at this point. If money is the issue, you need to take the pain away quickly. And the way you take the pain away quickly is by saying to the client, look, don't worry about the money just for now because your affordability and your budget are absolutely 100% my concern as well. There is no way we would ever recommend you to do anything that wasn't affordable. But here's the thing. First of all, imagine that whatever it cost was minimal, minuscule amounts per month. What would you do then if it wasn't really costing much at all? And secondly, if you really do want to do it, we'll help you find the money. We're that passionate about this. We'll actually spend time with you to help you find the money. And you can help them find the money. That is a brilliant line, by the way, that Lou Nathan, that chap I was telling you about earlier, actually told me that they spend more time over there in the good old US of A helping clients find the money. And I said to him, well, how do you do that? And he said, it's basically most people spend whatever comes in, and they're still looking for payday. And therefore, when you talk to them about £100 a month or even 50 quid a month, for a lot of people it's, well, I don't know where that's coming from because we don't have that money left all the time, and therefore you have to help them find the money. And he said that's literally tidying up, defragging their expenses. Everybody's got waste. Everybody has got some form of waste in their outgoings, and you can help your client find that. And just by saying that you'll help them find the money shows that you're on their side. So don't say to them, well, what would you give up if this happened, or what would you give up if that? You haven't reached that stage yet. It isn't the consequences right now. It's saying, I'm on your side. Let's try and do it. What you will find as well is that there are other objections come out at this point. So you might find the total unbelievers at this point. You'll find those who say insurance doesn't work, it never pays out. You'll find people say, you know, the parents will look after the kids if something happens. We haven't got to worry about that, and so on and so on. Fine, deal with it. And listen, if you can't deal with it, or if they're adamant that because of their religious belief they're never going to take out protection, then actually there's no point doing the rest of the fact find. There is no point doing it, because the first page, in effect, is selling and persuading about the concept of protection, and if they're not bought into it, there's no point moving to stage 2. But if you've got more than, you know, sort of 2 or 3% of your clients in that category, or let's say 5% in that category, then there's probably something that's going wrong. But if somebody does reach that point, what I would then do is this. I would get out the Positive Solutions Protection Disclaimer, where I'd ask the client just to sign to say that they understand that you've got a responsibility to ensure that their assets are adequately protected. However, they don't want you to protect them or review them even, and therefore just put in next to sickness, disability, critical illness, unemployment, death, and build B and C, we've put that in as well, you know, that you don't want them, they don't want you to review. And you can put in at any time, but or you could also say, well, okay, is it an issue just now because of finance or something? And if it is, and they're happy for you to look at it in the future, then get these boxes ticked here and get a future appointment in, they're signed, and it's done. You shouldn't have more. I actually had an advisor say, it's going really well with those protection disclaimers, I'm getting everybody to sign them. I said, that isn't the point. You know, it's not about getting the client to sign these things. It should be, you know, only a few % that you need to. So there's the fact find. So now where do we go? What do we do now? Well, we fill in the rest of this fact find, all the incomings and outgoings, and we've got this on a spreadsheet, on a Excel version, so it calculates all the gaps for you and shows you, you know, where the gaps actually are. And you get to finding out what the budgets are and what the budget is, and we haven't got time to go through that now. And there's key underwriting questions, which link back into the DIP on life quotes, and so on and so on. It's really good. So what we're going to do now is leave Andy and Angie and go away and do some research. Now, here's the next bit that you can do. You see, when we look at PS Business, it's almost all single product solution, almost all of it. It's some life cover, so basically 82% of all PS Business is just straight life cover. Almost all of that is just protecting the mortgage debt. Then there's a percentage, probably about getting on for 20%, that's got some critical illness, but it's still one product. It's like a life and critical illness to protect the mortgage or something like that. Less than 5% has got income protection, and there's diddly squat of nothing sold in relation to FID. What we're going to do now is build a protection portfolio, and I'll show you how we do it on LifeQuote. So to get to the page I'm on now, you go to www.lifequote.co.uk/intrinsic home. I'll send you the link to this. I'll read it out again. It's www.lifequote.co.uk/intrinsic home, one word. And that will get you to the page that I'm on here. What you then do is click on positive solution. Well, if you're intrinsic restricted or intrinsic independent or positive solutions restricted or positive solutions independent, you click on the login for you. So I'm talking to you guys as positive solutions restricted, so I'm going to click login. I need to just move my WebEx thing down a bit so I can see the screen. And this now is fantastic because what LifeQuote have done, which they didn't do for PS, is that they've built us a hub that is standalone purely for us, and it's got lots and lots and lots of information in here, sales aids, support, training, news, bits and pieces, all to do with us. But we're just going to log into the quotation side here, so I'm just going to click on login. Now you will have your advisor ID and password. If for any reason you haven't, then just phone up LifeQuote or drop me an email and I'll get that over to you. But I did email out about a week ago everybody's ID and password for LifeQuote. So I'm now just going to log in. I don't want to go to prison, but I'm going to click proceed all the same. So any quotes that you will have done yourself will now be showing under existing clients down here. And if you're going to do a new quote, you would click up here. Just before we do that, I want to show you these links down the bottom. If I click on Paper Fact Find, then guess which fact find opens up? It opens up the intrinsic protection only fact find that I've just been going through. These are our links down here, not wider links for everybody else. If you click on underwriting limits, it will just show you underwriting limits for the panel. If you click on provider critical illness comparison, I'll do that. Let's click on it, see what it does. What appears? Well, look what appears. It's the panel. It's all the critical illness definitions compared and contrasted for the companies that you can use. So it's designed entirely for us. But I'm going to come, the decision and principles here as well. We're probably not going to have a chance to look at the DIP, but honestly, definitely use the DIP because it is fantastic for getting decisions before you submit. Anyway, I'm going to call up a client here. So I'm going to load up Mr. and Mrs. Positive Solutions panel. And the only reason I'm calling it up is because it saves me typing in this little bit of info on the left here. So you can see we've pre-populated here details for all the quotes. But I've also put in additional details to bring back income protection quotes as well. Because I have said to you, actually, protecting if I'm off work sick and protecting if I've got a critical illness and protecting if I'm dead are all important to me. So I've put all that information in on the left. Now on the right-hand side here, the one that you're interested in, there's quick quotes, there's family income benefit, there's multi-benefit, there's business protection, and there's income protection. Forget about all of it apart from multi-benefit. Just go straight to multi-benefit. We're going to change this to say protection portfolios. And because that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a protection portfolio. And I'm going to click on this Create Custom Quote button. And down the bottom here, we're just going to quickly design a portfolio. Okay, so we're going to have some income protection. We want £1,000 a month coming in. We want it over 25 years. We want a deferred period of 13 weeks. We want occupation own, and it's for me, applicant 1. I click Save, and it's appeared now in the right-hand side. I also want, or we do, some income protection for my wife, and she wants it for 26 weeks for some reason. Maybe she's got some employer stuff coming in, 500 quid, own occupation, applicant 2. I'm going to save that. We've got a mortgage, and we're going to look at protecting that with life and critical illness, and we've got a £125,000 mortgage, and it's over 22 years remaining, and we're going to do that joint. And we're going to do some family income benefits, pay the bills if either of us died, to look after the kids and ensure we can maintain lifestyle. And we want 22,000 over 19 years, and we're going to do that for applicant 1, single life. And we're going to do exactly the same for applicant 2, single life. And so we've got 5 benefits there, a bit of a package, bit of a solution, bit of a portfolio covering different things, and I'm going to quote that. So that's gone off now, and Life Quotes are trying to package up where they can all of those benefits under a single provider, but they're also going to return all the single benefits back at the same time, so we compare multi-benefit to single product solution. Now on the IRIS system, this will probably take you a month of Sundays to do what this is hopefully going to do in less than a minute. So, well, let's see if it does. Normally it's done it by now. Come on. Hopefully I've still got some internet connection on here. If you've got any questions while it's trying to do it, right, here we go, we've done it. Sorry it took a little bit longer than normal. Normally it's less than a minute. That felt a little bit longer than a minute, but it's still a darn sight faster than anything else. So what we've got here are the quotes that we've done. So there's applicant 1, applicant 2, applicant 2, applicant 2, and joins, and here's all the products that we've got. What it's done is said, well, look, what we can do here is package all of that solution together for £83.72 with Friends Life. One application, they can do the whole thing. That's a hell of a bargain looking at that. £83.72, I spend nearly 60 quid on just insuring my Audi. I mean, you know, it's a lump of metal. I'm protecting my whole family here for the future at £83.72. It's an absolute bargain. Bright Grey, £90.56. And they're the only two companies that can package all of that up. The others on the panel just can't package it up. There'll be reasons that stop them packaging it up. But on the other side here, what we've got are all of those benefits split out individually. So for instance, I can look at the income protection here and see the quotes returned from Exeter, Family Friendly Income 1, Friends Life, Bright Grey, Vitality, Liverpool Vic, Aegon, and the full-blown Exeter Family Friendly Pure product there. So, and it's the same with all of these. So I can look at all of them and see what's actually been returned back, and that's great. So, but you can see at the top here it's £83.72 to do multi-benefit. If I do all of the individuals separately, the cheapest it's £89.10. So I've actually saved the client over £5 a month by going for Rolls-Royce Friends Life contract. Why wouldn't you do that? So let's say, fine, let's go with this Friends Life individual protection at £83.72 or packaged up. Of course, what you're getting there are £3.30 a month discounts off each of the additional benefits that you've added on. So you're saving the client, well, what, £14, £15 a month on that. So we click on select. Oh, I'm now offline. Andrew, are you still there?
Yeah, we can still see your screen.
You can? Oh,
yeah.
I'm definitely come offline here for some reason. My internet is just literally packed up. So I've no idea why that's happened. So my screen isn't going to change now, unfortunately. Hopefully you can all still hear me, but the I've just seen my internet has just completely died and crashed. So I'm going to try and reconnect back in, but for some reason it's gone. Hold on, it's come back on again now. So what screen have you got now?
So we've still got the, oh hang on, we've still got the life quote screen, but it's now gone to apply for policy. Yeah, we can see your mouse moving.
So you've got apply for policies. So you've got apply direct and telephone application, yeah?
Yeah, we've got you.
So what you can now do, guys, there's two ways that you can operate. You can either apply direct to Friends Life, and if I clicked on apply direct, it will take me straight through to their website. Or I could say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and I'm going to get Life Quote to do all of the work for me. So I could say to Andy and Angie, right, what we can do now, I can either ask you all the medical questions, take me about 20 minutes to go through it, quite in-depth, but that's what we've got to do. Or I can get a colleague of mine from LifeQuote who specialise in this to phone you and go through the questions over the phone. And what you'll find is most clients will say, actually, I'm quite happy dealing with somebody over the phone, and so that's what you can do. And literally, if I clicked forward, I enter a few basic details, and I'd get to a screen that looks exactly like I'm on now, where I would just literally select which time and which day you want LifeQuote to actually phone and ask me the medical questions. LifeQuote then phone me as your client, and they introduce themselves on your behalf. They explain the relationship. They explain that there's a policy that's underway. They explain who you are again, and they then ask all the medical questions, and they input it on your behalf under a cloned agency number. And what this means is that the policy is owned by you. You're the servicing advisor. It means the commission comes straight through into Intrinsic and not into LifeQuote. And they take all the disclosure risk, ask all the questions, submit it, and then manage the case right through to completion. This is very different to the way PS set up LifeQuote when you were first introduced to LifeQuote, because what they did was said, well, okay, we'll go on a commission sharing model with you, LifeQuote. LifeQuote said, fine, we'll pay you 180% of the commission. And whoever set this up at PS said, fine. So LifeQuote took a commission share. They pull in around about 210%. So roughly, they were making £130 on every case that you put through LifeQuote. The trouble was that that was under their agency number, so the money went to LifeQuote and then had to be passed back to PS. So there was a delay of weeks and sometimes a month to get the money back. And secondly, if you tried to phone up a provider and ask them about that client, they would say, well, it isn't your client, it's LifeQuote's client, so no, we're not going to give you the info. We set it up totally differently. We've set it up that it's under cloned agency numbers, so the agency is yours. You can phone the provider. The money all comes back into Intrinsic. None of it goes to LifeQuote. They're completely cut out the loop on that. And therefore, essentially, it's a much, much, much better deal. But of course, LifeQuote do need to earn some money. Before, they were getting £130 for every case that they did. Now they're earning nothing from doing all this work. So what we now say is that you as an advisor need to pay on a case-by-case basis when it completes, and the cost is £40 if the case goes straight through, and it's a total of £85 if it goes into pipeline and needs the additional work, chasing doctors and so on. But bearing in mind, as I said to you earlier on, and I'll show you the commissions just before we finish in a minute, you are substantially better off from where you were with Positive Solutions, to the tune of circa £400 on an average case. So out of that £400 we're giving you extra, in addition, what we're now saying is, fine, we're paying all of that cash through to you. If you want to use quote apply and admin, then that is going to cost you the £40 or £85, depending on whether the case goes straight through. If it's a multi-benefit policy, like the one that we've just done, that's still just £40 or £85. Doesn't matter how many benefits. If it's all with one provider, it's just that one charge. Just to mention as well, Old Mutual, OMW, have just launched their products through LifeQuote, and they're saying that they're going to pay for that charge for you. So if you do any Old Mutual case whatsoever, there is no £40 or £85 charge. OM are paying that directly. And all being well, when the new panel launches later on in the year, in May, we have said to all the providers, if you want to be on our new panel going forward, our new panel, then you need to fund quote apply and admin for our advisors. And I'm hoping very much that that will come to fruition at the end of May. But until then, it's still great value for money, and you'll find that clients absolutely love going through this process, because because you might think they like you might think that they like answering all these in-depth medical questions in front of you face to face. But I'm telling you now, most of them, if not 99% of them, most certainly do not like doing that, and much prefer answering them over the phone. It gives you full disclosure guarantee. It gives you all of the admin sorted out from there on in, and it does work. There's around about 25% of advisors on the roadshows that we did recently are using QAA, Quote Apply and Admin, and not a single one of them said, no, we don't like it. On the contrary, everybody using it said to me, I don't know why, I never used it before. It's absolutely fantastic system. So we totally endorse it. We love it. It's client-friendly, and it works, and it cuts down your time at point of sale doing admin, which increases your time at point of sale being able to talk about features and benefits and all the other bits and pieces that it's worth investing your time into. So I now come back to this just for the last couple of minutes. I'll just skip past all this stuff about gambling on roulette tables. And just to cover off a couple of things here. Just to talk about the money. So from a money tree point of view, I'm saying to you, you are massively better off now on the panel. And I'm saying to you that you could just take the money and carry on doing what you've always done in the past. Or you say, I am earning extra money and I'm going to reinvest that time and energy back into the client. What I'm going to do is protection-only appointments. I'm going to do some attitude to risk and capacity for loss. I'm going to do some proper ATR with the client. I'm then going to spend more time than I've done in the past designing protection portfolios, and I'm going to spend time putting those together, working within client budget. I know I'm not going to get everything away because ultimately the client budget will get in the way, but what I'm then going to do is go on a journey with the client and book them straight back in for another appointment to carry on the review process, you know, every 12 months minimum. And I'm going to do that because the client's paying me a little bit more, 7% more than they were paying before on average, and therefore it's my way of giving something back to them. Now, in terms of the figures, here is an advisor back in the days of PS who's earning $55,000 a year, total income. He got on his protection cases net from PS 141%, whereas now you're getting 194% on a Friends Life policy and 186% on a Vitality. And I've put those to it because 70% of our panel business goes to those two firms. Now, that 194% is quite a remarkable figure because we're paying you that, which is more than PS actually got gross before. So you've now got net more than PS actually got gross before. That's the massive difference we've made. It's 38% more on a Friends Life case. The other thing, of course, is, though, that you need to take into account the impact of the prices going up slightly. So before, the average premium within PS was $46 a month. So your average case page is $773. That's gone up 7%. So the client now pays £49 a month. But the impact of this bit over here means that you now get £1,141. That is, as I've said, substantially more. It's £368 more, or 47% more commission. But I would honestly, hand on heart, say if you actually do all the things I've been advocating, then instead of it being £49 a month, you'll see in excess of £80 a month committed by your clients to protection. Finally, just a couple of things I wanted to cover off. I know I'm flicking around here. I'm just trying to find the right screen. You now operate under ICOBs, not COBs. ICOBs is the insurance rule book, if you like, that the FSA put together, or FCA put together, versus the COB book of business, which is, in effect, where pensions and investments generally are operating under. Now, ICOBs was purely designed by the FCA to enable a slicker, more efficient process for lower risk general insurance business. But it is possible to run your protection through the higher demanding side of advice, and that's what PS we're doing. Well, basically, Intrinsic don't. We run our protection book of business through ICOBs. And what that actually means to you is that you haven't any longer got to justify why you haven't sold another policy. All you have to justify is why you've sold the one you have. And that actually makes a great deal of difference to what the amount of work you have to do. It's a demands and needs letter that you send to your client, not full suitability. You haven't got to say why this provider is chosen above another provider. You're just saying that the provider that you have chosen does fit their needs, and that's all you have to say. You don't actually have to do full comparisons either. So we've looked at LifeQuote, looking at all the premiums, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't want to do that. That's fine if you do. But we're only asking for comparisons to be uploaded if the client says to you, well, let me just show you just quickly on the fact find. There's one particular question on the fact find. If I can get this scrolling, there it is. Look, at the end of the last but one page. What's your budget, Mr. Client? What's your budget available for protection solutions? And the question is, and it's a really important question there, is lowest price a key factor when considering our recommendation? Is the lowest price a key factor? And if the client says, well, no, it isn't the lowest price that's a key factor, it's actually, is it going to do the right thing for me more than is it the lowest price, then you tick no. And if they say no, lowest price isn't the key factor, then actually we don't even ask you to do a comparison chart at all. You don't even have to, you could just go straight to Friends Life if that's where you wanted to go and say, here's all the features, here's all the benefits, here's how it fits, here's how it works. The client says that's fine. That's fine. It's a totally different way of looking at it. I appreciate that, but that is where we are. So you're going to find things much, 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 much easier to submit, to be able to process, and from a compliance point of view, to be able to get through. The final thing I just wanted to say is that we do sincerely want to add some additional features and benefits on the panel to the client. And this is an ongoing journey, and the new panel is going to come out with much more benefits to the end client than the ones I've got here. But where you're sat right now is that you have got additional benefits for your client right here, right now. So OM, well, they're funding quote apply and admin purely for those on the panel, and you could argue that that is a benefit for the client because they've got access to quote apply and admin, and it's not actually costing anything additional. Now you might say, well, that's more of a benefit for the advisor, and I wouldn't dispute that really. But what we've also got is with Aegon, advanced claim payment. Now this is unique. If they don't do it with any other network or any other firm anywhere in the UK, they don't even do it for Intrinsic Independent. This is purely for you guys. And what they do is they look to see, are you on the panel within Intrinsic? If you are and a claim comes in, then they back £1,000 straight away to the claimant before the claim is even processed to help them, because quite often there's some instant financial difficulty, and so they send £1,000 straight into the claimant's bank account. Bright Grey, uniquely and for our restricted advisors only, give access to Medical Care Direct, and this basically helps your client organise and get massive discounts from any private medical treatment and healthcare spend that they might need or want in the future. And Zurich give us access to their Zurich Assistance Programme. I'll send you full details on all of these, so you've got the small print. Friends Life don't even quote on any aggregator site, so to be honest with you, the only way that your client will ever buy Friends Life is directly from an advisor. So you'll never see them on a Go Compare or anything like that. It has to be advice-driven to even access Friends Life. And they also give us a unique sort of price matching facility as well, but I'll send you details on that. So all in all, we believe we can make a massive difference to clients' protection. We think we're giving them far, far more energy, far, far more focus than most advisors out there in the UK. And whereas the protection market has been in a slump over the last few years and the market has gone down, probably in the region of 20% since the heydays of the gender directive, we have seen the opposite happen. We've increased our protection so that last year we wrote 65 million paid commission in terms of protection. We've got income protection up to 13% and growing. We've issued over 80,000 policies, and you know, the whole thing's booming. So whereas we might have said, well, you know, perhaps the client is worse off with intrinsic because they pay a bit more, what we can hand on heart say is that we've reinvested time back into the client to give them all this extra in terms of time and focus at appointment level and on going through the likes of Life Quote to really bring, you know, the client some additional features and benefits as well with the product. So hopefully, you know, all